to order the Wednesday, March 17th meeting of the Community Services and Personnel Committee. I will take a roll call first. Tonight we have Tom Keegan, Greg Burnett,
Present.
Diana Revolus, Kadeem Roberts, Dominique Johnson. We have a quorum. At this point, we do not, Nick Sachinelli is not with us. And also, we have an additional council person here, David Hugelman. Okay, next item on the agenda is public comments. Is there anyone who is signed up to speak tonight?
There are 3 attendees, but there are no hands raised or anything.
Yeah. If you would like to speak, go ahead and raise your hand. Okay. All right. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the meeting held on February 17th, 2021. Do I have a motion? Mr. Roberts moves the minutes. I have couple of changes on page 2 down near the bottom. Mr. Lamond should be Mr. Daniels. Mr. Lamond. It should be Mr. Daniels said they were well positioned. So that's on the bottom of page 2. And a minor typo on page 3, first, second, third, fourth paragraph, last line, recommended giving the youth as opposed to they youth. And just one note on page 5, this is for you, Mr. Daniels. You had mentioned that you would share the new org chart with us, with the committee, and I don't believe we got that. So that was just from the last meeting. So if you have a minute tomorrow, share that org chart with us. That would be great.
Sure, certainly.
Okay. Are there any other additions, changes, Mr. Burnett?
Yes, thank you, Chairperson Smith. On the first page, when it says Ms. Smith called the meeting to order at 7:06 p.m. and called roll, that should be R-O-L-L, not R-O-L-E.
Good catch.
And then on page 3, the second paragraph from the bottom, it says, the second sentence, he said they used to have court for minor offenses in Norah, but it had moved Bridgeport. I think that should be moved to Bridgeport. Other than that, I see no other changes.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, all in favor of approving the minutes as amended, please raise your hand. Okay, it is unanimous. All right. Okay, next item on the agenda. Authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute any and all documents necessary to apply for and accept the school readiness grant, which includes the quality enhancement grant for the period July 1, 2021 to June 30th, 2022. Would someone like to move that? Mr. Burnett, thank you. I appreciate that. This grant, I'm gonna just go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Daniels, and we have, I'm sorry, who do we have?
Jamie Zyla.
Jamie, there you are. Okay, I see you.
Hi.
So go ahead.
Good evening again. Thank you, Madam Chair. So tonight, Jamie Zyla, who is our school readiness coordinator liaison with Norah Public Schools, she'll be speaking on that action item. Good evening, Jamie, and can you please give us the summary of this particular grant, which we do know is a reoccurring grant?
Yes, so thank you very much, everyone, for having me. I'm sorry that I'm in the car. I couldn't figure out how to figure out the background. But so this is a reoccurring grant. We do serve 636 children throughout the community of Norwalk. This grant does help subsidize the parent tuition, and it also helps our programs provide high quality care. The majority of our families are below the income level of 50% of the SMI, which is the state median income. And we also do have a $37,000 quality enhancement grant, which helps the community provide professional development and provide resources for our teachers and our providers. Like Lamont said, this grant, we've had it since 1998. It is, very few slots are moved around. So it is pretty standard, as has been from last year and going forward. I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody has with the grant.
Jamie, the paperwork for the most recent award was $37,688. Are you expecting approximately the same amount, or?
Yes, as of right now, we are expecting that same amount. The Office of Early Childhood really has been supportive of keeping our programs open and really helping our programs stay financially able to support our families that are working. So I have not heard of any decrease in funds, but if anything is cut, it typically does come from our quality enhancement dollars.
Okay, well, let's hope for the best.
Yes, let's hope that it does not get cut.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, all in favor? Okay, unanimous.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda. We have arrived. Discussion and vote on the Equity and Justice for All Commission proposed consultant led by us and associates. And so I would just, I'd just like to take a minute to say, that this really is a day of celebration. This night has, this announcement today, this approval process has been a long time coming, and the community's really, really, been anticipating this announcement. And so having been on the selection committee myself, I feel that led by us is absolutely the right consultants to guide us through this process. And, I'm just so grateful for our community that we're here tonight to approve this. So I would just, like to turn it over to Mr. Daniels to, just talk a little bit about, this past number of months in terms of, getting to this point, and to introduce the committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good evening to Norah walkers. Let me first, I do have some prepared remarks that I would like to share that, and it's in, over a year ago, I participated with Mayor Rowling on a town hall. And when we all witnessed the horrific murder of George Floyd, the administration gathered immediately to really discuss how will we respond. And it was a very, enriching conversation, thoughtful conversation. And we all didn't agree on everything, but that's okay. I think that's the beauty of the work, is to bringing people together. And I think tonight, I hope that our city sees that tonight is about reaffirming our commitment to strategies and practices that celebrate the diversity of our great city. And we talked about it this morning, that the goal really is to foster a sense of community and belonging, increase trust, understanding, connectedness, and respect among people from all different backgrounds and experiences. And so a year ago, we embarked on a process to identify expertise in equity and justice work. The original process, we were disappointed. We did not get the number of proposals that we anticipated. Neither were we satisfied with the proposals that were presented. And so we made a conscious decision to relaunch the proposal. Now, that was very risky because we all know we want to get this work done. And so, but we made that decision because it was important to us to get it done right, to identify the most qualified, but also to identify a firm that understands municipality work, that understands the complexity of the work, but also that understands a diverse community like ours. And so 3 3 months later, we embarked on another process. We received consultation from partners across the state and beyond to help us make sure we got it right in our RFP process. We tweaked it and we went out again. And at that process, we were very pleased with the quality and the proposals that came in. This was done by a 7-member selection panel committee, and Madam Chair, you were a part of that, and others. So this was not done in isolation. The city of Norwalk did not select or tonight recommend the committee. It was a selection committee from our community members. Faith-based was represented. The nonprofit community was represented. Representation from the youth, the young people was represented. And we made every attention to diversify of racial ethnic backgrounds. And so tonight, the selection committee, through me, through my office, proposed the Led by Us and Associates as the consulting firm to lead us in the work of establishing the Equity and Justice for All Commission. I want to clarify, they are not the Equity and Justice for All Commission. They will be leading, facilitating a process to help us get there. And so with that said, I would like to introduce Mr. Calvin Ayala and his team. Madam Chair, I have asked him through you to introduce his team, to talk about, to go a little bit deeper, because the press conference is just that, but to go a little bit deeper in who they are, what they bring to the table, their expertise, and their beginning conversation with you all around their approach and how they view the city and what they believe may be kind of within the first 3 months, what the work looked like. And then also, we'll turn it back to you, Madam Chair, for the comment committee members to ask any questions. So without further ado, the recommended and proposed consultant that has been selected from the selection committee, I'd like to introduce Led by Us and Associates. Good evening, Mr. Ayala. We'll turn it over to you.
Good evening. Thank you for having us. Thank you, Lamont, for that introduction or brief overview. And kudos again to the mayoral staff, Mayor Rilling, and everyone willing to take on this harsh conversation. And what I found was a very brilliantly written RFP, because it was very deliberate and intentional. And that's what drew our attention to it, that we felt we wanted to be part of something that was very transformative and can really make a social and economic impact in the years to come for the city of Norwalk. I'll be mindful of time, Chair, so I'll want to briefly just introduce key players of my team, and then just dive a little bit into what we're looking to do with you. But first and foremost, my name is Calvin Ayala. I act as the program manager, as a principal of Led by Us and Associates. I have a Norwalk native and co-founder of Led by Us, Miss Natalie Price. She's the Director of Business and Workforce Development here at LBU, and she will be working with a lot of our strategies and frameworks around the work that we do. Ms. Kim Bianca Williams, who's our Director of Community Development, who brings a ton of knowledge and expertise in civic and community engagement. She brings a lot to the team. We also have Ms. Sarah Roy with us, who's our Communications Director. And one of the big things we got from the RFP is that how important it is for us to connect the dots within the Norwalk community, how to make sure we engage in the youth and all the different perspectives, and being able to utilize multiple messaging outlets, being aware of different cultures and languages and all of that. And Ms. Sarah is kind of our go-to expert in that area, and looking to also work with your communications team with the city of Norwalk. Also like to introduce Ms. Nicole Campbell, who's our Chief Strategist and Legal Counsel, who brings a ton of philanthropic experience, as well as organizational management and expertise and legal expertise, because if we're gonna be serious about creating an Equity and Justice for All Commission that's going to have teeth, we need to codify it. We need to make sure that we legally give it power so it means something. Otherwise, we're just gonna end up with more documents that end up on the shelf. As an urban planner, I'm used to seeing consolidated plans, master plans, a lot of plans. If we want to be bold and courageous and do some good work, we need to empower people. And the only way to do that is put it in writing. And that's Ms. Campbell's expertise there. So those are team members that are with us right now. I saw a gentleman, Gerald Moore, who's also one of our team members, who popped in, but I think he might have lost his signal. But Gerald Moore is a civic and community engagement strategist who will also be working on this project throughout the year. So that's a brief overview of our team. A little bit about us and led by us is we are a strategic action consulting firm focused on marginalized communities and helping to build sustainable cities. And we do that by focusing in different areas such as business development, workforce development. We look at real estate development. We look at community engagement and development, and looking at it from the lens of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and really making sure that we're implementing equitable practices within systemic frameworks. And if we're going to be able to move the needle, we need to look at, well, what is the culture of how we do business? What exactly does good governance mean? And how do we collaborate? Because if we're going to talk about complex solutions or what missing pieces we have within education or disparities within transportation and our transportation networks within the city, we need to all collaborate and bring everyone to the table and come up with collaborative solutions that meet the needs of the people of Norwalk. So one thing that Lamont Daniels was very clear about is this is about improving the quality of life for all in the city of Norwalk, and we take that charge seriously. So that, again, kudos to the city of Norwalk for really taking on what's a key national issue. And as I mentioned today in the press conference, I think Norwalk, the city of Norwalk is poised to not just become a model city in the state of Connecticut, but a model city throughout the nation, because this is very now, this is very today. And we know that this type of stuff and these hard conversations are long overdue. Incidents like George Floyd are not new. When you guys visited back in 1993, they had a 1993 Blue Ribbon Commission report that Lamont Daniels and his staff and the mayor had pulled up. And it was on the precipice of the Rodney King beatings back in that time, and some bold work and planning that was done by the city of Norwalk. But what are the action plans? What are the deliverables? So we're looking to come in to listen to everyone, engage the community, residents, get the lens of perspective of the people that live in the city of Norwalk and become their voice and bridge the gap between them and government to make sure that we are meeting the needs of constituents. So we're here to do this collaboratively. We need everybody's involvement. And that's a little bit about our strategy. With that said, again, I want to be mindful of time and leave it open if there are succinct questions that you guys have. But just wanted to give you a top level overview of who we are and what our approach is.
Questions? Mr. Roberts.
Oh, no, I just want to just say, Lamont, thank you for this, 100%. We've been going back and forth with this for about 8 months now, you know, and with this situation, just being like, you know, someone within the community that is the youth that led these marches within the city, that, you know, fought for the same thing people fought for in the 60s. And you know, I feel like, you know, this group of collective individuals, scholars, honorable people, this is amazing. Your guys' background speaks for itself. I have a whole list, especially of all you guys' names, and just to see the accolades you guys have and everything. Like, it's very important, because when you go through a process like this, you want to make sure you have an attorney. But at the same time, I want to say, definitely, Nicole, make sure you bring that multi-billion-dollar community foundation here to Norwalk. You know, that mindset that you have. But at the same time as well, you have a principal, former principal. So you know how to deal with kids, and you know how to deal with kids that come from, you know, the backgrounds that you see here in Norwalk. And then, you know, you just have like people that I see, you know, that work community development, and you have somebody like a grant writer, you know, and that's something that's big as well, you know, when you're dealing with, you know, disproportionate people or kids that come from backgrounds, you know, like that. So I just, you know, want to say thank you guys for coming out here and you know, accepting this. This is amazing. And like you said, we got to make sure we keep the needle moving. I'm very excited for this. I'm very excited. I missed the press conference today. I was in the office, but legit, I'm very excited for this, and it means a lot. And Nicole, I think I remember you. I know you from Norwalk, and to have someone sitting here from Norwalk is another statement as well, because she knows what the city is, so she can fill you guys in as well. So thank you guys for this.
Just as a point of, Kadeem, I appreciate the comments. Just as a point of clarification, Miss Natalie Price is from Norwalk, and she's a Brian McMahon alum.
Natalie, I'm sorry, Natalie. Yes, definitely.
Literally going back and forth in a text right now with my old guidance counselor, Donna Leeds at Brian McMahon High School, who's really excited. So this is exciting right now.
Oh, we're very glad to have you, a born and bred Norwalker who really, knows our community. Any other questions? Oh, I just let the record show that Mr. Sachinelli joined us at 7:22. Mr. Burnett.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I did have a question, Kevin, and anyone else from your team can chime in. I mean, as you reviewed the RFP and considered working with Norwalk, what do you see as Norwalk's biggest challenge from a DEI lens in doing this work?
That's a great question. I'll start and I'll divert to my team. And we talked about this a little bit at length with the committee, and kudos to the committee because they grilled us. You guys put together an awesome committee that was committed to looking for this work. But one of the things that came up is rebuilding trust in the community. This is not the first time, this isn't the first rodeo for anyone in marginalized communities, whether it's Norwalk or anywhere else, right? For Latinos, Blacks, Asians, anyone that lives, or anyone that has to deal with poverty, you hear all the great things from a political lens of what's happening, what we're gonna do for you, come out, vote for me, and we're gonna make it better. This is not the first time in the rodeo for a lot of people, and reestablishing commitment and trust between residents in the city of Norwalk, that their voice matters, and that it's going to be heard, and that they're going to be part of some decision-making processes and being able to be participatory. I think that's one of the biggest challenges that we saw, and that we saw from the RFP. On the flip side, we saw there's a lot of moving pieces. And you guys, the city of Norwalk is ahead of its time in terms of, you guys are doing a lot of great stuff already. And what we see a solid role for led by us is bridging the gap and connecting a lot of dots along the way. So Kim, Bianca, I know a little bit, just from a community development standpoint, is there something else that you want to chime in on?
Sure. So good evening to everyone. So I think one of the things that we are well aware of is the potential for pushback, because as you all have stated, you have tried to do this before, and there's some concerns in the city that, are we really going to get it done this time? And so I think, when we think about our approach of how we're going to manage that conversation, it's going to be extremely important that we allow people, first of all, the place to share their concerns, give them the courage to speak openly and honestly, because when you have been in a situation where you've been shut down for so long in so many different ways, you have the mindset of, well, why even bother? So when we think about engaging the community, the first thing we want to do is tell them, this is why you should bother, and get them involved and give them the voice and give them the opportunity and let them know, not only do we want you to speak, but your voice is valuable. And so that plays into the work of how we share this information with the residents, with the stakeholders of Norwalk. They've got to be able to see that we are actively applying the discussions that we're having. And so that's what we are endeavoring to do.
Ms. Revolus. We can't hear you, Ms. Revolus. Although you don't seem to be muted. No. Mm-mm. Try maybe your headphones. If you would like to, why don't you, we have a chat. If you want to put your question in the chat. Yeah, you should. If you go to Q&A, you should be able to put your questions. In the meantime, I will move. If you want to put it in the chat, go ahead. Otherwise, I will move on to Mr. Keegan.
Yeah, thank you, Chairwoman Smith. I have a couple of questions. I did speak with some of my colleagues on the council about this. First thing, it's Lamont. You got a heart as big as my kitchen, my friend, and you know, I mean, we're so lucky that you were involved with this, because this is a very impactful issue, and it's something that's important to us and the city. I have a question about the time that you expect to spend before we would see any results. This is a huge undertaking. I'm looking at what you intend to do. I mean, there's so many groups and so many different people that you're going to be talking with, and how long do you expect before we would start to see some information forthcoming, or results, or however?
Let me start, and then I'll definitely let led by us jump in, because right, so the RFP definitely was bold. It was intentionally to be bold. I think that's why we will be relying on this consultant team to say, this is the vision that we've laid out. Now, how do we get there? And through the Led by Us team, they're going to help us, you know, where are those low-hanging fruit opportunities? Where are those quick wins? But how do we still stay the course? I think that's what the message was this morning. I think even Councilman Burnett kept on saying it's about action, but we still got to keep moving. I think we all recognize these are complex issues. Like Mr. Ayala said, these issues are not new for the community. I think what's important is, and I love the 3 I's that Mr. Burnett, we're being intentional. We're committed with resources, investment, and time to address this. I think the other piece, Councilman Keegan, is, which excites me, is that we're not doing this alone. Norwalk Acts is a thought partner. They're doing a lot of work that I know Councilman Huberman and Councilman Smith are involved. We're going to build on that work. I'm really excited with, under the new superintendent, Alex Estrella, they brought in Ed Fergus, who is a nationally known equity consultant. They're looking at the equity lens through our youth lens. So when we look at the different, you know, pillars, if you will, or different four spokes, I'm not sure what to call it, you know, it's really around how do we then bridge all the work we're doing into Mr. Ayala's point, how do we then connect the dots so we're making sure that we are addressing all Norwalkers, because within the school system, that's the children. So, you know, that's covered. With Norwalk Acts, that's the nonprofit community, how they think about their practices and their policies and systems to address equity. But then what about the city? We start talking about the seniors and the resident experience. So we're hoping that through the Led by Us, they're going to kind of be that umbrella, if you will, of bringing everything together so we have a unified strategy around looking at how we ensure that all Norwalkers feel connected, feel they can trust and count on their community. But I often would say, you know, humorously, but seriously, that's the work that Led by Us is going to help us figure out. I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Ayala, if you want to expand or share anything other.
Yes, so I just want to be clear on one thing, is the full goal, or one of the biggest end goals and objectives for us coming in is to establish an equity and justice for all commission, and identifying the individuals to recommend for that commission, and ultimately codifying that commission and getting that commission up and running will be happening on the tail end of the 1 year of service, possibly at the 9-month standpoint. If we can accelerate, I'd love to see it by the 3rd quarter of our work, so that we can observe how that commission starts to pull itself together with 3 months left in the contract. So the biggest component here is establishing the Equity and Justice for All Commission. In the first quarter, we are going to be looking to meet with Lamont Daniels and his staff and other government officials. We're also looking to have interviews and relationships established with several of the nonprofits within the city, faith-based organizations. Good thing for us, we already have a lot of those connections. We already know a lot of these people, and a lot of people, a lot of residents and stakeholders, activists, business leaders have communicated with us with their intentions to love to get involved. So I think one of the biggest things, or one of our biggest challenges, the first 3 months of our work is really connecting with all the different people that are in the city of Norwalk, in terms of activists, organizers, the arts community, culture, tourism, basically, and then putting all of that together in different compartments to then be able to merge them. So there are a lot of moving parts. Now, in that work and in our framework that we call strategies in action, we are going to select we are going to look at the strengths and opportunities and where there's risk, but we're going to find immediate wins that we can start putting action right away and start doing things. So the Norwalk community should be expecting communication within the first the first 6 to 8 weeks, where there are going to be opportunities for participation, whether it's a town hall, a charrette, or something happening at, let's say, the Carver Center or anywhere else throughout the city of Norwalk. So we are going to be looking to get into the boots on the ground civic engagement rather quickly once we get the confirmation and go ahead from your body and ultimately the Common Council as well.
Are there any other questions? Ms. Johnson.
I want to thank you all as well. I've had a busy inbox today after the announcement with a lot of excitement, but also a lot of questions too. So I'm really glad that we have this opportunity to not only meet you, and thank you, Lamont, for this. I want to echo that as well. I think some of the questions I've gotten today have more to do with what will happen down the road, but there are some, I think process and timeline were big themes from what I heard from constituents today. So I'm glad that we, thanks Mr. Keegan, Councilman Keegan, for that timeline question. The process question for me, I think is more, I think from what I'm hearing from folks, they want to be sure they didn't have the benefit of reading, your response to our RFP like I did. So are all groups in Norwalk, based on the work you're going to do, going to be have a seat at the table? For example, I heard a lot from folks concerned about Norwalk women and whether gender parity will be discussed, about other marginalized communities, faith communities, LGBTQ plus communities, and so on. Folks who are, experiencing income security, things like that. So I guess that's my first question is what's the scope of these listening sessions? And you say you already the connections. Are there ways that community members can give you feedback? I mean, obviously through us, like I could send you what I get, but I'm wondering if there are ways in which people in our communities can get in touch with you all.
So Dominique, it's a great question, and it's a loaded one at that. We have a lot of work to do. There's some sit-down planning that we need to do with Lamont's staff in terms of coming up with the framework and timeline and what we're doing. We've had some in-house conversations. I know Sarah's got some plans on what we're doing in terms of communication and engaging and getting messaging out there. If you are a Norwalk resident, we want to hear from you. If you've ever felt you've been marginalized, we want to hear from you. The LGBT community is an important component. We want to hear from you. The youth is very important. We're trying to put this strategy in place because they are the future, and they look at everything from a totally different lens than we do as adults in our experiences coming up, whether we grew up in diverse neighborhoods or not. Everyone has a seat at this table. And one thing we're very critical about here at Led by Us is we do feel the work needs to be led by us. And that's community driven. Everyone's involved, and we want to do everything within our power to make sure that everyone is seated at the table. Now, with that said, if any particular group or organization or entity we may have missed, overlooked, or quote unquote snubbed, it's all within love and passion. Bring it to our attention. We want everyone at the table so that we want to hear how residents and people in the community are experiencing the city of Norwalk. We want to hear community knowledge, and that's part of the work that we do. And so we want to hear from everyone and have all the different organizations and opportunities for everyone to engage. So there are different strategies that we utilize in the hub and spoke model. I'll let Natalie chime in really quick just on the strategy, because it goes with that. And then Nick, I think you should chime in a little bit from a philanthropic standpoint of how it is that we connect the dots with all the different cultures and all the different things that we look at from a strategy standpoint.
Real quick, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to know, go ahead, and then I'll ask my question after.
Well, thank you for having us here this evening. The approach we take is strategies and action for communities, an approach that we're going to start looking at immediate conditions, emerging conditions. We're going to look at all the plans that the city has already created and timelining them with how we can start executing them and creating dots. We're going to look at 9 social levers that we are going to bring to different groups. I've already started to tap out the approach that I feel is the best for the city of Norwalk, which I call the hub and spoke model, because we eventually want you guys to be able to steer your own ship. So the hub and spoke model has right now, as I'm looking, about 15 different groups that I've identified, and not by organization, by characters and by, like community neighborhoods, city government. And from those, from the folks, I'm creating communities within them. So right now I'm looking at business. I'm like, well, there's the chamber, but also in business, there's small business, there is minority business. So I'm trying to work my way through the spokes to identify all parts of the community that we need to touch as best as possible, and where we're going to be able to reach out and get those. Everybody in these groups have a different way of looking at each lens. For example, one of the lenses is economic, and that's employment, unemployment, top jobs, industry, income, relative. That's that industry. And what somebody in business thinks about economics is going to be different than what somebody in our community thinks about economics. So we're trying to get, it's more qualitative data to be able to see what are people thinking. Numbers are great, but we always want to know and hear and get the sentimental from the audience and from our constituents. So that's how we're planning right now.
Nick, you want to chime in really quick?
Sure, and I'll speak to just how we are thinking about building the processes and frameworks for this work. So I think when we look at diversity, equity, and inclusion, we tend to focus on outputs and tend to look at the results of who's sitting around the table and saying, oh, well, do we have enough people? Do we need more people to be added? And instead, what we want to focus on is how are we creating equitable processes in the first place? How are we creating equitable frameworks in the first place, so that what happens as a result is that you have all of the right people around the table. So when decision making is happening, you already have a process and a framework in place that's equitable and inclusive. And so the result is then also equitable and inclusive. So that's the approach that we want to take, that we have taken in our work, and that we'll definitely do here. There's lots of different stakeholders, and they all, as Natalie and Kelvin mentioned, they all have input, they all have perspectives and experiences that we want to make sure that we are considering and bringing to bear in terms of how we put together the commission itself, the process, the questions that we're asking, the conversations that we're having.
Go ahead, you can continue, Ms. Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you all so much. That I think will really help folks who can listen in either now or later with a broader sense of context for what you're endeavoring to do. Thank you. I imagine two of those hubs or spokes might be Norah Public Schools and the Norah Police Department, though I don't want to presume, but I guess I'm just mentioning that because I've also heard from constituents that obviously they are hoping that Dr. Estrella will be involved, if not already. Dr. Fergus would be involved, if not already. I don't know about the scope of his contract, but on the school side and then on the police side, I'm assuming that because the murder of George Floyd was really the touch point on why this meeting is able to happen today, in terms of this renewed attention to these issues, that police violence will be a major part of, and relationships with policing in our communities is going to be a big theme here. Is that fair to say that you know that like a certain amount of this work is really going to focus on that, or do you want it to organic?
I can speak to that. And what I'll do is I'll actually share, you all have their our proposal. I'll actually share the RFP because we do call out, Councilwoman, a component around the police. Mayor really asked us to put that in. And then it's been a while ago, but when Dr. Estrella announced the work with Dr. Eddie Fergus in her press release, they actually made mention that we are looking forward to working with the Equity and Justice Commission. So that was all done intentional. In fact, my office has already met with the lead person through the Board of Ed, and again, Jennifer Barahona, who is executive director, so that we were just waiting for this piece. This is the piece, the bookend now that, and made it very clear during the selection process that part of this work, and it's written in the RFP, is that there needs to be synergy and alliance with the existing work that is happening, referencing the work through Dr. Estrella and Jennifer Barahona. So you're right on with that. We were very intentional with that.
That's great to hear. That did come across my desk a bit today too. So that's great clarity. Thank you. Yeah, and the other thing generally that came up is I think people just care deeply. And I know you can tell that already. And so I think that I want to say how grateful I am ahead of time that you said, like, please come with love and care if you feel as though your voice is not getting heard. And I really appreciate what you said, Nicole, about the idea that we want this process to begin from the beginning to be an equitable one so that the outcomes are equitable as opposed to either tokenization or just kind of older ways of thinking. So I think that to me is, I can tell you from the folks I've talked to today that they really do care about these things, and the way in which you're approaching them seems to me to fit with, I think, a lot of folks' hopes for this. So I know that there's a lot here, and I appreciate that. And this is not easy. So please do let us know how we can help you in this process as well. So thank you.
Ms. Revelous?
I'm like so back and forth right now with what I should say. I appreciate this. It's great. I'm not a marching type of person. I really hope that this is done with intention, direct intention. A lot of talking around the table, coming to organizations and group. Our residents, our community are right there. What's wrong is right there. We don't need discussions. There is a economical problem to people, to Black people, and how it affects their schooling, how they are getting, gentrified out of here. And I wanted to be very intentional to say, like, this is happening to the Black community. This is happening to, because we can even muddy that trying to be like, politically correct in that, and the muddying of really being intentional on identifying situations that are plaguing a community and not watering it down or muddying it to be everybody. This is my issue that I'm talking to you right now. Be intentional about being equitable. Being intentional about listening to them. A lot of the conversations, again, I was on Norwalk Acts. There was already a release on 2018 that will answer a lot of the things. We'll go back around the table and have a conversation about. It's there already. You know what I mean? Just, I would just ask, of course you got to start somewhere, but a lot of it has already been started. Just get into the community, talk to them, tell them what they need, because that's what we do. It's because that's what they're getting annoyed about. We already know that cops are harassing them here. Like, we don't have to talk about that they're getting harassed. They're getting harassed. So let's just deal with that. You know what I mean? Like, let's just not muddy it anymore and just do it. And I call for even my district, my community, you see it, you hear it, talk to them and say your pleas. That's all.
Yeah, I just want to chime. I really appreciate your comments. One thing I can say about our team here, led by us, is we had no intention on staying with this RFP, and we were coming in to be token consultants. I also stated to Lamont Daniels right out the gate is this is not a political ploy for us. We take our work seriously in terms of building sustainable and resilient communities. So we're not here to play the politics game. We're here to have the harsh conversations, help facilitate and lead, and listen to the voices of the residents and constituents of Norwalk, and really start to mend some of those relationships, continue to build trust, being able to transfer of power between the stakeholders and people in the community, and understand the roles of the way public administration, or as I say, good governance should happen. I do appreciate your concerns and the way you've stated it, because we know the problems. They exist in all communities, just not in the city of Norwalk. We see it play out all over the place, in every major urban center throughout the country. We see it here in Connecticut. We deal with exclusionary zoning. We know what the problems are. Trust me, because we already know what the problems are, I'm hoping that that big breadth of timeline and scope of so many action items that we're trying to hit, because we know true problems that exist. Community policing has to be addressed, and we have to address a lot of different things. We are well aware, but we want to do our due diligence and make sure that we're hearing things from the Norwalk perspective and understanding what tools and resources are already in place that Norwalk has already implemented that maybe another municipality, another town, or some other community does not have. So we have to do our due diligence and understand what are the assets that Norwalk already has, because we're not looking to duplicate efforts. Just like you guys have a strong consultant advising the Board of Education, we're going to cross collaborate and bridge the gap and figure out where do we fit in. But we're not looking to duplicate taxpayer dollars. Trust and believe we're not looking to do that. And I think a big major component is the communications and outreach and how we engage. I want Sarah to just really quick just touch a little bit on what that means, because that is a key important cog in us getting the messaging out to the community. Sarah, if you want to just take a couple quick minutes just to make a point.
Oh, can you hear me? Yep, okay, great. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having us here. Thank you, Calvin, for asking me to speak. Yeah, so we've spoken in the past in our interviews about having a dynamic approach to our communications, not just through the press or social media, but through a variety of channels to get the messages out to the people of Norwalk in as many ways as possible. Translating messages into different languages, I think, is an important key component of what we're looking to do with communications, to make sure that people aren't missing the message because of a language barrier. I just lost my train of thought, but yeah, I think along with the multi-layered approach to the different forms of communication, we want to make sure that we're communicating regularly. Kelvin mentioned try to hit the ground running as much as possible. I envision regular communication. Now, I don't know at this point, is that daily, is that weekly, but it will be a constant flow of information about, here's what we've been doing, here are some of the issues that we've found, some of the quick solutions we can address now, some of the long-term strategies we're going to be putting in place, and telling stories. I can't wait to talk to Norwalk residents and hear what they need. I'm not interested in telling them what they need. I want to hear from them, and we all want to hear from them what it is they're looking for, what the issues are, and how they feel they should be solved. Or getting us closer to a solution. So that's part of our approach. We've talked about in our past discussions about possibly having an app for Norwalk for this project, different social media platforms, print media, television, radio, lots of different opportunities, and also getting boots on the ground and getting into the neighborhood face to face, which will be interesting during a pandemic. But we're definitely, and I've seen some great examples out there with other communities doing like slow street projects of making it work during a pandemic in terms of communicating with people in person and getting really valuable feedback. And if you hear my son in the background, I apologize.
I'd just like to add, Ms. Revolus, that, I hope you hear what we heard in the selection committee from Kelvin and the others here tonight. Sitting down and talking about the problem is one thing. You know the problem. You're living the problem. But the change is what needs to happen. And, not lip service. It needs to happen. And, I'd just like to, I want to see if there's other questions. I did notice that Mr. Keegan had another question.
Yeah, hi. Thank you, Madam Chair. What is the cost of this endeavor? That's not listed.
Sure, that would be me. So in my supportive document, you definitely see X's. So we bid it out this for between 150 to 200,000. The led by us came to us at 150. As of this morning, we are very excited to announce that the Fairfield County Community Foundation will be investing $50,000 towards this project. And I just want to publicly thank again Mrs. Juanita James and the entire team at Fairfield County Community Foundation, because I think for those that are listening, it should let Norwalkers know that this respected organization believes in this process and wanted to support the work that we're doing. And so Councilman Keegan will be asking the BET for the $100,000 to support this project for the year, sir.
Thank you, Lamont.
If I can add there that those funds will come from the contingency fund.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Mr. Roberts.
So I just made sure, before I even, I bigged everybody up, which was wonderful. I did get about 20 emails today, and I try to put all of them together, try to get a key question. And one question that basically came up, it said, in light of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, and all killed by police brutality or social injustice in general, what have you all done within your communities, your families, whatever the case may be, in order to change the mindsets of the people in Black and brown communities to move the needle forward?
So thank you for that question. So I do believe that the active leadership in the Black community doesn't start when something like that happens, especially in this case. I've been in Bridgeport for 10 years, and since the day I moved here, I've been creating initiatives that empower Black and brown people and businesses in my community. Led by Us is created because we were not allowed at tables, that we didn't get to participate in the rooms and be a part of the discussion. And about 3 years ago, I decided with Calvin Ayala that we will no longer just wait to be invited to a table. That moving forward, we're going to start creating tables and opportunities for our community. And in doing so, we started to do we launched different initiatives, and we just started to take things in control and move things forward that we felt our community needed. Our work is economical. right? So it's around economics. And the things that we have done in our community is right now we have a space that contributes to entrepreneurship. We supported a lot of our businesses downtown in our community and raised funds to be able to keep them open during the COVID. We've run 10-week entrepreneur programs. We've worked on big concerts in our community, and our concerts are all community local band that we would have that would come down, because that money gets reinvested into your community. So when we say that we're going to start taking initiatives, our initiatives for us have already been taken. Led by Us is created because of that. So we're going to continue to push our work so that situations like George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, we need to solve that. And that's something that we definitely acknowledge. And we want to move this work forward with passion, but also with action.
And I'd like to add to that, Mr. Roberts, one of the new initiatives that we are doing at Led by Us is a program entitled SEAT. So we recognize that there are a lot of nonprofit organizations that lack diversity. So we are very intentional in how we've created this program to identify underserved and marginal communities that we can go in and train residents from those communities to sit on boards. When we look at the decision makers in our communities, 83%, upwards of 83% are Caucasians, which means there's less than 15% of Black and brown people. We recognize that. And so we took that on as an initiative, and we're looking forward to launch that in the late spring. That is going to give the opportunity not only for residents of marginalized and minority communities to have a voice, but now partner with nonprofit organizations that have money, that are funding initiatives, that are doing projects. So they are more of a part of it. So it's beyond, as Ms. Revelis said, talking about what the problem is. Our position is to bring solutions to the table. And that is one of the ways that we're doing that, along with many others.
Go on, Ms. Revelis.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say on both of what you said, Natalie McMahon, that's actually what I mean. We know for it's economic. We know that. Entrepreneurship now, building certain things. And for Kim, what you said, I agree with you. But one thing I would just look at for us all, if we just stop looking at ourselves as leaders, we're not. Our community is the ones that are leaders. We're all servants to them. So the majority is out there. Listen to your leaders. And then we come back here and do what our leaders told us to do, because they're not, the community is not, that's not what it looks like. It's just because we think our leaders are around this table here, but it's out there. You know what I mean? So I would just say, get that, that's beautiful to do, but our leadership is not around that table. They might have the money to pay for what the leaders need, but they're servants to the leaders too. You know what I mean? But you're doing a great job, Natalie. That's exactly what I mean right now. That's it.
Mr. Hooverman.
Thank you, Chairman Smith. And I'm not a member of the committee, so I'm taking a moment though to speak if I could. I'm incredibly excited by this and by what I hear tonight. I gotta say, I feel like I've been holding my breath for 10 months and am now cautiously able to start to breathe again. I want this work to happen, to move forward with efficacy. You've said a lot of great things tonight. I mean, you talked about the youth being involved in this, which I think is of tantamount importance to this as well, because and not just our young people in schools, but I'm talking about our millennial youth as well need to be brought to the table here as a part of this. And Mr. Ayala, you spoke about you reach into these communities and what you do and the timeline and the framework, and I think that's amazing. The thing for me is you talked about this idea of sustainable community, which I think is so important. And Ms. Williams, you spoke about, actively applying, and it's action that needs to happen. But the question that I really have right now is that all too often, and I've been a part of a number of things similar to this, and all too often, the people at the table are, to borrow the vernacular of the current, they're woke. They see the problem, they understand the problem, and they want to work to make solutions. How do we reach into the other side, the white privilege side, and bring them to the table to have these discussions as well? Because DEI work is hard, and it is dialogue that is difficult, but it's the difficult dialogue that we have to implement the things, the direction that I can hear that you want to take us, which is amazing. But we've got to make sure that we're getting those leaders as well to the table, because that's how we start to change culture. Because sadly, that culture was created by people who look like me. And I think that's as important as the economic side of the diversity side of all of those sides. And how do you do that in the work that you do?
It's an amazing question. And it's also very difficult. I'd be lying to you if I told you that I, Calvin Ayala, have all the answers, or Led by Us has all the answers. If we did, we'd probably be on a yacht in the Cayman Islands somewhere, because everyone would pay us for it. I call it the unicorn approach. We're chasing a utopia in some way, shape, or form. But let's keep it simple, right? We are being asked to come in, use our knowledge and expertise to help facilitate and guide conversation, hard conversations, difficult conversations, and we need to be respectful of disagreeing opinions. And I think that's one of the most important things in doing collaborative outreach and civic engagement is we can disagree, and there are multiple pathways to get to key results. But there are people that may feel right now that think that Inequity and Justice for All Commission is not important or is not needed. There are people that feel that systemic racism is not a thing. There are people that feel that we've progressed a lot. And if we look at the 60s, I mean, you pretty much had large transformative shifts towards equality, right? But now in 2020, we realize in 2021, what are we searching for? It's equity, because now we've defined for ourselves that there's a massive difference between equality and equity. And having those conversations, because some people may still not know the difference. The same way there are differences of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I think right now we're overwhelmed with buzzwords. And my team would tell you, I hate buzzwords. Let's keep it simple. Let's talk about what it really is. But we do want to bring everyone to the table. We are reaching out into every single neighborhood. When Natalie speaks of that hub and spoke model, some of it is neighborhoods, and we have some neighborhoods that have that are doing well, and some neighborhoods that have food insecurities and wealth gaps and transportation issues and many other things that make them marginalized. And we need to address all those things, but we want to bring everyone to the table. We want to hear from folks that are doing well in their community. How do they feel about density housing coming into their neighborhood? What does that really mean? Is it really going to put a burden on the educational system in that part of town if more people move in there? Or is this going to enhance the cultural and educational benefit of our youth? And ultimately, this brave and courageous work is going to be for the youth who are going to grow up in an inclusive and diverse, well, Norwalk's already diverse, which is awesome. So, but being able to, you mentioned the word, David, culture. We are doing a culture shift here. people are afraid of gentrification, for example. And I say it all the time, you're not afraid of gentrification. You're afraid of someone removing your identity and your culture from your neighborhood because you grew up here. This is what you know. So we grasp to that. That's ours. It means something to us. And if someone is going to come into our community, it's okay if you have mixed rate housing. It's okay if you're better well-to-do than me, but embrace my cultural perspective, embrace the community that you're choosing to live in, and vice versa, so we can respect each other. So it is a difficult, hard conversation. We're gonna do a tremendous amount of outreach, and we're gonna do our lead with our best. And we're counting on collaboration, right? These solutions will be collaborative, and all people need to be at the table. And if we don't hear from people, or there's someone that's not there, we're all ears. What can we do? On the flip side, it's difficult. Again, if we had all the answers, we wouldn't need we wouldn't be looking to establish a commission. But there's room for everyone to be involved, and I think that's the most important part. And we need to be. We can't be afraid of having hard conversations, and that's what this is about, and that's what the process is about. Because we all learn from one another. And I'll say one last thing on that. It's very simple. Whether we like it or not, our fates are tethered together. Marginalized folks, well-to-do folks, Black, white, LGBT, you name it, our fates and futures are tethered together. And if we really want stimulus in our communities, we need to all be at the table. We need to all be accepting and understanding of how we improve our quality of life, of living. And that's what we're looking to do, is really set a standard that Norwalk can be proud of. It's community-led and driven, and it's going to be something that every Norwalker can own and say, this is my Norwalk. And that's what we're looking to do.
Thank you so much for that answer. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Do you guys have like a principle-based structure?
We do. Principle-based structure. We do have we have something called strategies in action, which is the way that we go about our work. And it's a solid framework that's used internationally in transforming municipalities and cities, train of thought. And that's a framework that we use and we've been trained in.
Okay, I asked that just because it's actually easier to get people connected through principles that they agree with. I just realized that in my own work. That's why I asked. And I would just go with the equitable part of what you guys are doing, also amazing, but just like the picture with equal, right? Proper equity, when they all look over the fence is when they have that conversation. And the extreme right or the extremists will actually come together around principles and have conversations like Council Huverman was saying. So that's why I asked.
Great point. Thank you for that.
I just want to follow up just real quick and just say that I loved that answer that you just gave, and I am excited, and I thank you guys for taking on this work. And Lamond, I thank you for the work that you have done, and Chairman Smith for being on the committee and finding this group led by us. I think this is going to be a positive for Norwalk. So.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that I do hope that our constituents who have been patiently and impatiently waiting these past 8 months or so feel through this conversation that every minute of it was worth it, because led by us is, you are the team for our city. And with this approval tonight, and I do expect and hope for an approval, with this approval tonight, I believe that we are embarking on fundamentally the most important work we do in this city. And I couldn't be prouder to be a part of it. So I want to thank the mayor. I want to thank Lamond for all of your hard work, my fellow members on the selection committee, and all of you led by us, welcome. That being said, did I ask for a motion? Okay, so first we need to move this. Mr. Burnett, are you moving, or do you have a final?
No, I have a procedural question, because The language that's in the backup is different from the language that's in the agenda, which we're about to vote on. So from a procedural standpoint, what are we voting on? Because you indicated that the dollar amount is going to the BET, and the motion that's in our agenda does not indicate the length of the contract, which is in the backup says 1 year. So what is the disconnect between what's in the backup and what's in the agenda?
Good catch. Yeah, so we are actually voting. Lamont, I'm going to ask you to look at your backup. Authorize the Mayor Harry W. Rilling to execute an agreement with Led by Us and Associates for the consultant for the Equity and Justice and All Commission for a total not to exceed. Now, so we do need to, make sure we may need to suspend the rules and amend this.
Okay, yeah, please advise.
So
it's two pieces. One, my understanding is to approve, are prepared to go before BET and move, give me one moment, I just received. Give me one. I don't know my. Okay, right. Okay, I just received the text. So we are authorizing Mayor. We don't know when we will actually get the $50,000 from the Fairfield County Community Foundation. So I was just advised that we would ask the BET for the total $150,000 until we receive the actual funds from Fairfield County and Community Foundation.
So for a total not to exceed $150,000 for a period
Correct.
of 1 year.
Correct.
And do we want to add that also, do we want to add something about, Mr. Burnett, you're the king of process.
Yeah, I'm gonna seek your advisement. What are you recommending?
Also, being chair of the finance committee and having been a member of the board, the BET.
Exactly.
You're the king of all of these details. So do you recommend that we add in that with funding expected from?
Well, I mean, if the intent is for the recommendation to go to the BET for a special appropriation, as opposed to this coming out of a specific budget line item, the question becomes, why is this committee approving this wording? Why isn't this wording going to the BET requesting a special appropriation? Or more so, this specific motion should include that the funding is going to come out of a special appropriation and not coming out of a specific line item. Because if I'm hearing correctly, that's the intent, to ask for a special appropriation. It's not as if Mr. Daniels has $150 in the line item that he's taking out with a specific account number.
Nope, it will be BET, sir. That is the intent. The resolution should be to go to the council, and then the intent is for it to go before BET before it gets to the council, is my understanding.
My understanding is there's the special meeting of the BET on Monday night prior to the council meeting. So by the time it gets to the council, we should have that specific information.
So this committee is being tasked with moving this item forward for a period of 1 year and a request to the BET for a special appropriation for $150,000.
Yes. So so authorize the Mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute an agreement with Led by Us for the consultant for the Equity and Justice for All Commission for a period of 1 year with a request for the BET
Well, for a request for a special
For a
appropriation.
special appropriation for a special
For a request for a special.
appropriation.
Of $150,000.
Okay.
So that's what that should read at the bottom.
You don't have to include BET because
Okay.
BET is the only entity.
Right, we understand that that's the body that will be
Right, exactly.
going before.
Okay, so the wording, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute an agreement with Led by Us for the consultant for the Equity and Justice for All Commission for a period of 1 year with a request for a special appropriation of $150,000, not to exceed $150,000. Okay, okay, so let's, can I first of all call for a motion?
Thank you.
Okay, so Mr. Roberts would like to move the amendment to the motion, okay?
Yes.
Okay, all in favor of the amendment? Okay, and Mr. Sachinelli, if you could just. There you are. Okay, so that is unanimous.
Okay.
And now, okay, now I'm gonna read.
Barbara, are you reading your email, your text?
No.
Are you getting information that it shouldn't say anything about a special appropriation?
Oh, okay, hold on. It shouldn't say anything about a special appropriation.
It should just say to authorize the council to approve.
Okay, so just the contract, to just approve the contract, drop the special appropriation.
Yes.
Okay. All right, are we good with that? So now,
Not really. Why are we not approving the funds? Are we approving it without allocating how much it's going to cost? What, I'm not understanding that.
I'm not, Councilman Gregg, I'm not clear. Right, so it should say that to authorize the council to approve for an amount not to exceed $150,000, but you're not approving the request for the to go to the to BET.
now she's saying yes. Hold on, I'm gonna call her. I'm gonna
Okay.
call her. Okay, give me a second. Because now she's saying yes for an amount not to exceed 150. It will have an account number by the time it gets to the council.
Right.
Give me one.
Right. Thank you, Led by Us. This we got to get it right. The procedural.
In the entertainment industry, we call this dead air.
Okay, coming from a radio background, I appreciate dead air, and we don't want to have dead air. Okay, so we will have an account number by the time it gets to the council. So we are going to authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute an agreement with Led by Us for the consultants for the Equity and Justice for All Commission for a period of 1 year. And do we include an amount not to exceed $150,000, period. That's it. Account to be filled in later, we'll add that. Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, sorry about the dead air. Okay, Mr. Burnett, that's the official word.
Okay.
Okay, all right, so we've already made the motion and voted on the wording as is. So now I'm going to read it again and call for a vote.
Okay.
Okay, so authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute an agreement with Led by Us and Associates for the consultant for the Equity and Justice for All Commission for a period of 1 year for a total not to exceed $150,000. All in favor? Unanimous. Welcome to Norwalk. And sorry for that little bit of, confusion there at the end. It was stated correctly as it was. So thank you, led by us, and we look forward to seeing you on Tuesday night at the council meeting.
Thank you very much. You all may sign off.
Yes, you may all sign off.
Thank you again for
Thank you
having
so
us.
much.
So thank you so much,
Thank you,
guys.
and good night.
Pleasure meeting everyone. Good night.
Thank you.
All right, now we will move on to item 7, which is to review and approve the revisions to the ordinance position description of communications manager and reassignment of grants coordinator responsibility. First, I would like to entertain a motion to move that item. Okay, Ms. Revolus. All right, and Mr. Burney, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and introduce this item.
I don't know where to start after that conversation with Lamont solving the problems of the world, and I'm just asking for a position description change. But very good, Lamont. Good job.
Thanks, Ray.
So what we have in front of us tonight is a request for the personnel, the Community Services Personnel Committee, and then the Common Council to once again amend the position description for communications manager. As some of you may recall, 3 years ago, this was the very first action we took in reorganizing the city administrative offices. And it took a while to move this process through. And what we did, if you recall back then, was we created the communications function in concert with the then existing grants coordinator position. During the establishment of this job, we had a lot of discussions about how this job may evolve into a bigger job than what we foresaw 3 years ago. And that indeed has come to fruition. All of you know the extensive amount of work that Josh Morgan does on behalf of the city regarding communications, all of the initiatives he has implemented over the 2.5, 3 years he's been here. The nightly bulletins on behalf of the mayor, all of the website changes that have been put into place, the dashboard, the social media, all of those have been moved along through Josh. And now we come to this committee and to the Common Council